Greetings, brothers and sisters on the recording. Today is June 8th, 2024. It's 3:07 p.m. Reason why we are joining together today is to begin the commemoration of the transition of Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey, which officially took place June 10th, 1940. So I'll share that briefly. That's something that we all should know as Garveyites, birth and transition of Mr. Garvey from August 17th, 1887 to June 10th, 1940. But the significance of today's or this year's transition is greater. It's of greater significance. Why is that? So first thing you'll look at is, anybody ever heard of the concept of a solar cycle?
No, I haven't.
I have.
What's your understanding of a solar cycle, Brother Eric? And I see you say yes as well.
Are you referring to me?
Yeah, Brother Orman, because
Brother Orman?
Yes.
Okay. That's the length of time that it takes the sun to make a complete rotation around the universe. As far as I can understand it, it's like the Earth goes around the sun. Well, the sun also travels around the universe also.
Correct.
Now, Brother Eric might have more information.
Well, that's good enough. And everybody can see my screen. The significant time period that I'm speaking of is 28 years. And the way you can easily come up with that, well, the way I've remembered it is every 4 years there is a leap year, and once every leap year goes through, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that is a full cycle, and that process takes 28 years. Now, the significance of 28 years for us, so 28 plus 1940. I don't know if I can do this. All right, let me just pull up my calendar. There it goes. Hold on, Brother Eric. So 28 years after Mr. Garvey's death was 1968. In the message that I sent out, I said the fourth age. I would consider this the first age, or the first cycle. I believe I did that right. I think I did. I don't know. All right, and then if you add another plus 28 plus 28 works. No, it doesn't. So let me see. Clear. My computer. Hold on, my computer's acting up now. Need this. One moment. Okay, so we were at 1968 plus 28. That takes us to 1996. And then if you add another 28, takes us to 2024. Significance of that, we are in the same cycle, or the as far as the alignment of the planets, the solar system, the universe, that Mr. Garvey was in during his transition. So that will, it's almost as if we could go back in time, Mr. Garvey would be transitioning in 2 days. So If we had 2 days with Mr. Garvey, what was his last message? What was his focus for those to carry on his message? My audio keeps going out. Thank you. Brought my mic, but I didn't plug it in. That's working. One moment. Test, is the audio better?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. So that's the first thing that I want to ground us on is timing, where we are in a spiritual timing aspect. Now that we know where we are, let's jump straight to it. The approach will be we're going to jump straight to the last year of Mr. Garvey's life. Basically the last 6 months of 1940. And then we will go back from 1936, late 1936 to 1939 to kind of get a full view of his last message, in my opinion. So 1940 started out for Mr. Garvey as a very good year. But that was short-lived. So there's several messages from Mr. Garvey to his children. We're not going to read those in depth, but they are available in the UNIA Papers. So January 6, 1940, Mr. Garvey's in great spirits, writing a letter to his son. Very shortly after January 20th, this is Thomas W. Harvey and Ethel M. Collins, two very important individuals. Ethel M. Collins was the Secretary General at the time, and Thomas W. Harvey, I believe, was the High Chancellor at the time. But they also ended up being students of the course of African philosophy. So keep those names in mind. They very significant in Mr. Garvey's life. But they wrote a letter to the UNIA members in New York, January 20th, 1940. They said, "It becomes our duty to appeal to you as members of the Universal Negro Improvement Association to come to the immediate aid of the President General, who is now dangerously ill in London. Immediate financial aid must be rushed to him as to give the best medical attention that London can afford. Because of the seriousness of Mr. Garvey's illness, it may become necessary for someone to go to London to safeguard the interests of the organization." So they understood the condition. They understood the possibilities. In addition to securing Mr. Garvey, there was also a mindset to secure the interests of the organization if anything were to unfortunately happen to Mr. Garvey. They end the letter, "Remember that the Universal Negro Improvement Association expects every man, woman, and child to do his and her duty. We remain respectfully yours." So Thomas W. Harvey and Ethel M. Collins, January 20th, 1940. So early January 1940, Mr. Garvey has his first, what we know to have been a stroke. Ethel M. Collins to Amy Jocks Garvey, January 23rd. So just a couple days after they sent the message to the body, they were sending a letter to, well, Ethel Collins was sending a letter to Amy Jocks Garvey. She says, "Deepest sympathy and sorrow of the illness of our President General, Honorable Marcus Garvey. On the 13th, I was notified by cable from Miss Daisy White." So also keep that name in mind, Miss Daisy White. She was a personal secretary of Mr. Garvey in his last years. She became informed by Mrs. White of Mr. Garvey's illness, also asking to notify Jamaica and the American divisions, and the help was wanted. So she's letting Mrs. Garvey know that they are aware that Mr. Garvey is in need, and they have sent out requests for help. We've not been able to get in touch with all branches owing to the fact that we have always reported to the headquarters. So the fact that all local divisions were reporting directly to the headquarters, the local divisions didn't necessarily have the best connections or records as to what was going on. That was all sent to Mr. Garvey in London. She ends the letter, we must keep Miss White supplied with revenue to hold things together and present a proper front to the public. So although Mr. Garvey obviously was ill, we need to make sure Mrs. White, his personal secretary, was well taken care of and presentable. Sorry, I didn't have my camera on. So February 17th, 1940, Mr. Garvey is still ill. This is a letter from Jay McIntyre and on behalf of Daisy White and Marcus Garvey to Marcus Garvey Jr. So Marcus Garvey is still recovering. In February, he's unable to write himself, but he is still in communication with his family and sending support. By March of 1940, Marcus Garvey is feeling better. He writes to the League of Colored Peoples, now that I am feeling a little better, I am pleased to do so. He's able to write back at this time. Next day, Mr. Garvey writes personally to his son, so he's feeling better. January, March, April 6th, continuing to write to his son. April 20th, writing to his sons, as a matter of fact, because he would write to Winston or Julius on behalf of, he would write to both of them at the same time. So he kept writing letters to his children, to his sons, up to April 27th. May 9th, 1940, G.E. Harris, president of the Garvey Club. What was he doing? Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. Must have lost connection for a second. Okay. Let me get back. March 9th. So in March, basically they're getting back to work, and Mr. Garvey is receiving letters as to the work that's going on in the United States. Quickly thereafter, March 18th, this is one of the major things that ultimately led to Mr. Garvey's transition. Article was published in the Chicago Defender. Marcus Garvey dies in London. So this is the article that was prematurely printed stating Mr. Garvey had passed. Ethel Collins again writes to Amy Jocks Garvey. This is May 18th. So just a few days later, our ancestors moved very quickly. But just a few days later, by this time, Ethel Collins had already received a message from Amy Jocks Garvey denying the death report of Mr. Garvey. She says, you can realize the unnecessary amount of work that this false rumor has caused us here, in that numerous inquiries from all over the country by Western Union, airmail, special delivery, and mail has come to me for verification. And so I thought it best to send you a cable message which would relieve your mind and attention, and that you officially inform the press here, that you would officially inform the press here. So they had to clear that up, clean that up. In the process of doing that, 2 of our members died from the news shock, one from the Garvey Club here and one in Philadelphia. So this wasn't, something to play around with. Our people were dying from this news. Mr. Charles James, also another individual we should remember, Charles James of Gary, Indiana, is here with us for a few days. In fact, his division sent him here to find out about the truth of it all. So there's messages of Mr. Garvey being, transitioning. The divisions, the presidents, the leadership, they are mobilizing very quickly. Lives have been lost. Unnecessary funds have been used otherwise, that could have otherwise, lives have been lost. Unnecessary funds that could have been used otherwise had to be expended in extra work and time of our officers of the organization to right the wrong they have given out to the public. So again, I don't want to understate the magnitude that that false article had, not only in Mr. Garvey's response, but in the response that the divisions had to take to clean that up, to clear that up. Garvey to Garvey Jr. So June 1st, Mr. Garvey is feeling well, in good spirits, and writing to his son. June 2nd, 1940. This is in New York, I believe. Toronto, Solicitor President Toronto Division, Honorable S.A. Haynes is announcing a meeting, title of the meeting, Garvey is not dead. This is Sunday, June 2nd. So again, fighting back that propaganda. June 3rd, UNIA leaders to Ernest J. Cox. In Philadelphia. They're asking for Mr. Cox to influence and affect the immediate re-entry of Mr. Garvey into the United States as an act of mercy in the interest of millions, 3 or more millions of Negroes whose belief in democracy is beyond question. So UNIA leaders are petitioning to get Garvey back in the United States for his health. June 9th, 1940, message from from Daisy White to Amy Jocks, simply 3 words: Garvey relapsed sinking. So things are not looking well. June 11th, 1940, Daisy White to Amy Jocks Garvey died yesterday. So he officially died June 10th, 1940. Quickly thereafter, June 29th, the solicitor to Amy Jocks Garvey, the solicitor is sending messages to Amy Jocks Garvey talking about the estate, well, not the estate, but the things that Garvey has and the property that Garvey is utilizing, basically trying to get it taken care of, trying to get it cleaned up. Ethel Collins wrote a letter to Amy Jocks Garvey a month after Mr. Garvey's transition. And I got to give credit to our ancestors. They definitely got to work very, very quickly. I can't imagine, the loss of Mr. Garvey at that time, but I definitely see, as I said, Ethel Collins, Thomas W. Harvey, James R. Stewart, Charles L. James, as well as many others, I'm sure, but those individuals definitely stepped up to make sure that we are able to do what we're doing today, speak, have meetings, and work in the name of the UNIA and know what the purpose is of the UNIA. So Ethel Collins wrote to Amy Jocks Garvey. She says to get to New York for a conference proper with many able presidents. So they're trying to create have a conference in New York on August 18th. So Mr. Garvey just transitioned. The work must continue. The work must keep going. In the meantime, we are mapping up an agenda to send them so they will prepare themselves and so spend little time in reaching our decision. So trying to get the agenda ready. There's still work to do. We don't want to be wasting time. We still need to come together and get this work done. I would suggest that since Miss Daisy White has been the nearest person in the life of the headquarters while Mr. Garvey was alive and knows the entire situation, wouldn't she be better to claim the documents of the association legally if we made her Assistant Secretary General? So they're going to make Daisy White Assistant Secretary General to take care of the affairs, to have the legal right to take care of the affairs of Mr. Garvey in London. In the meantime, let us know the amount that has been owed, and we shall at once raise funds to liquidate so that his things would not have to go to public auction. So again, working immediately, working quickly, and working to preserve Mr. Garvey's work and doing, whatever they have to do for that purpose. Ethel Collins to Amy Jocks Garvey, 3 weeks later, July 30th. Says, this is to inform you I have received all your letters okay. Myself and Mr. Thomas Harvey are doing the best to hold the fort. So Mr. Thomas Harvey, of course, in attempting to function, I've never had this problem before. Okay, we're going to continue. Ethel Collins to Amy Joss Garvey 3 weeks later, July 30th. Of course, in attempting to function, we have secured a small office. All right, it's going to share. Okay. Small office temporary until the conference further decides. So they're trying to regroup and continue working. In so doing, we have created the displeasure of some of the New York presidents, and that they are spreading the propaganda that there is no parent body and that we should not be supported. So there were some in New York that were, this kind of a clash was developing during Mr. Garvey's transition. It says, kindly tell this to Mamie Demena that she should properly interpret for you if she knows the whole situation. So Mamie Demena also, I forgot about her. She was definitely instrumental in maintaining Mr. Garvey's legacy and work. The letter was brought to Mr. Harvey's attention, and so he in turn advised all presidents not to entertain anyone without credentials. So that's something to keep in mind based on this group: Ethel Collins, Thomas W. Harvey, James R. Stewart. There was a mentality of being credentialed as of 1940. All right. Yeah, not too far. Credentials. I am feeling that headquarters in New York will suffer much from the old executives' influence. I do regret that Mamie Demena could not get here. This is just what they wanted, to have Mr. Garvey out of the way so they can finish what they could not do in his lifetime. There are yet many foolish men and women who are in our ranks and will fall for such men again. Says, we are preparing to hold our ground at the conference, for a fighting element will be there. I told them there are just as important matters in London to clear up, and so we will get to it in time. I am looking forward, however, that things will work out for the best. Already one of the members of the branches here attacked Mr. A.L. King, president, last Friday, and a fight ensued. We're sending credentials to Ms. White as Assistant Secretary General, which will empower her to act in behalf of the organization. Whatever can be saved. From Mrs. White's recent letter, she has access to the situation. The office furniture will be sold to cover the rent. She is also going to ship what records we most need. So very important, the records that they most need, and philosophy and opinions and manuscripts and lots of magazines of different issues. She is busy getting the crates to pack literature and lessons in African philosophy. So that's very important. These are the texts and the information that our ancestors were trying to preserve. And I think that, yeah, 1940 is not too much to it. We're getting ready to jump to 1936 briefly. 36 is quick too. This is the official obituary, League of Colored Peoples. We regret to announce the passing of Marcus Garvey on the 10th of June after the illness, which lasted about 6 months. So officially, the entire month or the entire year of 1940, Mr. Garvey was sick and recovering from his first illness, which we just read about. Daisy White to Ethel Collins, August 6, 1940. Until I get your power of attorney credentials, I won't be able to remove the stuff. So as of August, she's still trying to get the stuff out. August 1940, August 18th, 1940. This is the opening message to the conference. They were able to have the conference, gather the conference, and they opened the conference, a day after Mr. Garvey's birthday. So we can only imagine again the significance of what our ancestors had to go through and how they had to maintain themselves. And I think Sister Amy Jocks or Mother Amy Jocks Garvey elocutes that the best or articulates that the best in this message. So August 18th, 1940, first gathering since Mr. Garvey's transition. Through a cruel chain of circumstances, I greet you as a widow, a mother of two fatherless sons. And I have a bereaved member, and as a bereaved member of the Negro race who has lost the active leadership of Marcus Garvey. She said, "'Tis said, they who go feel not the pain of parting. It is they who stay that suffer." She said, Garvey died recently in London. Wait a minute, hold on. The stray reporter, George Padmore, as who gave the news to the Associated Press, was flashed around the world. So the article that we saw that Garvey died recently in London is the man who actually caused his death. So at this time, Amy is of the belief that the article definitely had something to do with Mr. Garvey's death. Physically, Garvey had been so weakened by the first stroke in January that paralyzed his right side that he could not but regard the report and obituaries as malicious mischief. The mortal remains of Mr. Garvey have been permanently embalmed and placed in a vault in Kensal Green, London, until English ships are permitted to take bodies to Jamaica, where he was born. This will be the final resting place of his body, as he requested sometime before his death. Marcus, the son, would have been 10 years old as of September 17th, and Winston, or who we know as Julius, would have been turning 7 years old as of the 16th. So very young children. Mine is a big task, as it will be hard to convince the world that their father depended solely on the organization for support and left nothing for his sons. Whatever you may do in your deliberations, always remember this: you can't leave Garvey out of the UNIA, because the principles of the organization are Garveyism. And the program in a nutshell is Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. Those words are Garvey's soul cry. You can't improve on our program. It is wide in its scope, broad in its principles, and deep in its spiritual fervor. It embraces all phases of uplift for our race. Every other Negro or colored organization is but a byproduct of Garveyism. Garvey's thundering voice tell me that it can't be done, and I'll laugh you to scorn. So Mr. Garvey was very confident, didn't believe there was anything that couldn't be done. The attempts of Garvey to put over certain phases of our program, such as operating factories and running steamships, failed because of treachery, dishonesty, and above all, the unpreparedness of the Negro at the time to handle big business. The result was the businesses became training schools and experimental centers. Judging the results from a business point of view, we suffered great loss, but we gained by our experiences and experiments what money could not buy. Garvey made an opening for Negroes in the commercial and industrial world of America. Before Garvey came, no white offices would train Negroes in their establishments. Some Negroes had the theory of business, but not the practice. When Garvey was sent out of America, those whom he had trained were competing with the competent whites in the civil service of America and other commercial industrial activities. Garvey was branded a failure, but his employees were hailed as successes. Garveyism has its many ramifications. It will take many years to put over successfully even a few of the items in our program. But what of that? We are still making great strides in educating our people to a truer sense of their worth and their potentialities, getting them up to a racial gold standard so that we can better use them later on without failures. Change our plans. We shape our policies and change our plans as the exigencies of the time and world conditions warrant. Our organization is in the second stage of quiet, penetrating work. That is why some of our critics in writing of our leader, he is still our spiritual leader, captioned their harpings as the rise and fall of Garvey, because since his exit from America, his voice was not heard so often, shouting our program from rostrums. He has ended the first stage of his program. He had awakened the sleeping Negro. He had aroused him in a consciousness of the potentialities as a man. Teach him now quietly. Garvey has not failed in world leadership and never will. He was a strategist. He was a born mass psychologist. He knew when to shout and when to walk quietly. He has always been the only leader of all the Negroes everywhere because he alone had a program embracing Negroes and colored people of all climes and conditions. Garvey's position cannot be filled because it is not empty. If he had withdrawn his program from the Universal Negro Improvement Association, then another leader would be called on to present a program. But he has given Garveyism to the UNIA forever. Therefore, those who may be called upon to carry on the active work of the organization should bear in mind this fact. You can't leave Garvey out of Garveyism. And that completes pretty much 1940. August 22nd, 1940, Amy Jocks is sending a letter to the solicitors, just basically trying to make sure she gets her stuff, or gets Mr. Garvey's stuff. August 23rd, Ethel Collins to Amy Jocks Garvey, a synopsis of what developed both in the Commissioners Conference and Emergency Conference held here in August 18th to 21st. So this would have been our official convention of 1940. When our leader has, okay. So in summary, they were speaking of obviously the need for leadership, the absence of leadership, the absence of Mr. Garvey, who would fill that void. And
President, there's a lag. I don't know if it's me or you, but it's a bad lag.
One second.
We can't hear you, President.
I got all right. I'm gonna stop my video. The video should help. I'm gonna just keep my camera off. Maybe that'll help.
I don't know if you say anything, President. It's bad. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if you're speaking.